So we thought at the TCRC that it would be wonderful for a candidate to be able to come out and give his vision for the city of Philadelphia. And as returning citizens and supporters of returning citizens, folks who run organizations that deal with mass incarceration and transition and reentry, we'd be able to listen to each candidate and ask questions and form relationships. Because we want to know our next mayor. We want to know who they are, how they think, and what is their vision for the city of Philadelphia, and what our place is in that vision. I met Councilman Kenney at Parkside. I had previously met him at City Hall, and I was very impressed with how he thought, how he thinks, and what he wants to bring to the city of Philadelphia. I'd like to introduce him, and he's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you today about the mayor's race in general, but also about the issue of reentry and returning folks coming back to our neighborhoods from incarceration. I'll tell you just a little story about a young man that I came in contact with a number of years ago. I was in a city, I don't use a city car anymore, but I was in a city car that had lights and sirens in the front, and there's a young man in South Philly on the west side of Broad Street who was spray painting a wall. And I saw him doing it, and I hit that police horn, and he dropped the can, and he's like a freshman or sophomore. I think he's a freshman at Benjamin Franklin at the time, and he was cutting school. So I did something I probably wouldn't do again, but I told him to get in the car. I guess he thought he was a police officer. I get in the car, I said, "Where are you supposed to be?" He said, "I'm supposed to be at Ben Franklin." So I said, "Well, let's go." So I take him up to school, and we went in and saw the vice principal, and I said to him, this young man is now mine. He doesn't show up again for school, I want you to call me. And that happened maybe 2 other times where I had to go to the house and knock on the door, get his mom to bring him to the front steps and then put him in the car and take him to school again. And through the course of our relationship, he expressed a desire to want to work. Got him a job in a restaurant, he was bussing tables, making a few dollars, he was fine, he was doing well. I got him a couple other jobs here and there. Spent some time in his life for about 3, 4 years. And then he totally dropped off the face of the earth. I couldn't find him, I didn't know where he was. His mom wasn't living in the street that they were living on, and I just figured, I don't know what happened. They moved, I don't know. So I'm in council, my office one afternoon, and I hear Wilhelmina Moore, who works in my front office, say, oh my God, Jesus, where were you, where have you been? And I came out, it was him. And I said, come here, where you been? I mean, so I said, come on to the office. We sit down, and he tells me this long story about his interaction with drugs, his interaction with a couple of different ladies who he had children with, his beginning to sell drugs as a result of his need to use them, and his time he spent up on State Road. And he was very humble and very open with all the information that he had given to me. And I said, well, what do you want? He said, I don't want this life anymore. He said, I don't want to be like it. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to worry about every day making a living. I don't want to worry about my kids. Like, I don't have them. He said, my 2 children are not in my custody. He said, they're in foster care. He said, and I just don't know what to do. I said, well, relax. We got, we can work on this. So we tried to figure out what he was eligible for in the way of benefits and things. And I found him another job working with the rec department as a day laborer. And he was awesome. He went to work every day, and his coworkers loved him, and he just had a great relationship with everybody. On the job, he's up in North Philly working in the playground, and a young lady comes out from the grade school. She's a teacher, and some of the guys on the corner were giving her a hard time, how guys do sometimes on the corner. And he went over and interceded, got between them and walked her to the car, got her phone number, and they started dating. And then ultimately, they got married. He got his 2 children back from foster care, and they are both living, all four were living, and then they had a child of their own. During the course of his employment with the city, we hit the fiscal crisis that we hit in 2008, or earlier than that, I guess, and they had to lay him off. And I've said, oh my God, we can't go back that way again, but I need to have him working. So I went to a company that I was familiar with, and I got him a job in the mailroom, learning how to do CAD work. He was doing mail, but he was also doing CAD work in an architecture firm, and started to really do well there. And everybody loved him there again. He had a smile that lit up the room, and people loved him. And then 2008 hit, and the architecture business went under like everybody, like all other business, a lot of other businesses, and we was out of work again. So I went into a government agency that I'm aware of. I don't want to tell you more about him personally as far as his name and things, because that's his private business. But he is now working full-time, has his children back, is married, has a house in South Philly that he's paying off, that he's buying. The two of them are buying together. And the point of the story is that that's some person in my life that I've touched and have been able to touch, and have been blessed as a result of being able to touch that life. Not only that life, but his wife's and his children's and his families and their families. The point of the matter is that no one's fallen that far they can't return. No one's messed up that badly unless they're doing life. No one's messed up that badly that they can't come back and have a fulfilled life again. And one of the most powerful, if anybody's a Bible reader, but I'm not, all Bible reader all the time, but one of the most powerful stories in the New Testament is the prodigal son, where the son goes off and he spends all his father's inheritance and crawls back humbled and humiliated. And the one brother says, well, what are you making such a big fuss over him for? He's a no good. I've been with you the whole time. And the father says, you know what? Your brother was dead, and your brother's now alive. So you should rejoice in the fact that your brother's alive. And I think that's what our government can help to accomplish with people who are coming back to us. When I was a kid growing up in the 60s, the word was lock them up, or lock them up, everybody, lock them up. Just lock them up, throw away the key. Well, first of all, it's wrong. Second of all, it's $40,000 a year to keep somebody incarcerated. And third of all, they're not being productive citizens and participating in the economy or in social life the way they should, because they went the wrong way. During the course of my council career in the last couple of years or so, I passed a bill that I thought was significant to kind of try to help break that cycle of poverty to prison. And it had to do with marijuana. And it had nothing to do really with marijuana itself, about the use of it or not. I don't care. You can, I'm not suggesting people use it, but I'm suggesting people drink either, but people do it. But to get arrested for a small possession of marijuana and wind up with a criminal record that follows you forever is crazy. And then when I looked at the statistics, people arrested last year, 4,200 people were arrested in Philadelphia for possession of a small amount of marijuana, and 83% of them were people of color. Now, that doesn't mean that white people don't smoke marijuana. It means they're not getting stopped on the street in a stop and frisk operation,
right.
And people are then having their pockets emptied, and a small amount of marijuana is being found, and they're getting handcuffed, transported, put in a cell, picture taken, fingerprinted. It's humiliating over something so de minimis as having a small amount of weed on it. Doesn't make any sense. And when 83% of the people who are experiencing that happen to be people of color, how does that young man get a job, or that young woman get a job? We've had experience with the lawyer here, who represented two people who had the same situation. Young lady who was just a wonderful person, smart, very intelligent, well-spoken young woman, who got caught, and the cop must have been really had a bad day, or he made her have a bad day because she had $5 worth of marijuana on her, wound up getting arrested, put in jail for 24 hours, a $200 fine. And when the worst part was, she got to the airport where she worked in a rental car company. She lost her security clearance because she had a criminal record. She lost her job. Well, we found her another job. She's doing much better, and she's making twice what she's making, and she's doing well. We have to, as people start to transgress or come out into the world again from prison, we have to be ready for them. We have to, in advance of their release, figure out who they are, why they're there, what skills they might have, what they want to do in their life, and then try to tailor programs, both at community college and building trades and some of the other things, people who are friends of mine that I'm going to try to talk to about accepting some folks back into their programs so that people can turn their lives around and make a living. You can't make a living making minimum wage or less. It just doesn't work. And the other part of the other area where I want to invest significant city resources is in the waterfront in Philadelphia. We have a container terminal down at Packer Avenue Marine Terminal that employs a lot of people. There's a plan in the state called Southport Expansion, which would create an extremely large number of jobs in the port. Now, those are jobs you don't necessarily need a college education to do. You can be trained to drive a forklift. You can be trained to lash containers. You can be trained to work in a warehouse or be a teamster or a longshoreman. Longshoreman who work at that facility makes $60 an hour plus health benefits and pension. That's the kind of job that this person coming back to us, that we can help train, find opportunities for, and get them back on the right path. So they're paying taxes to the city as opposed to us paying tax money to house them up at State Road. I want you to understand this is a very, very important element of my campaign, an important element of my administration, if God willing that I get elected. I want to make a difference in what is happening in our prisons and afterwards when people come home. They are all our folks. They're not folks from Florida or California. There are folks from our neighborhoods. And for many reasons, the way the laws are written on narcotics and drugs, the way we look at drug abuse as opposed to a sickness, a crime as opposed to a sickness, an illness that needs to be addressed. We have people housed up there who can't make bail simply because they can't make bail. That's insane. I would like to utilize our city departments to have a real daytime work experience for folks in our prisons, where we can vet folks to make sure that they're following the rules while they're there. Put an ankle bracelet on them, not put them in an orange jumpsuit, but put them in a blue City of Philadelphia work operation, and let them work with the rec department and sanitation department and the streets department. And let them work side by side with men and women who are doing the right thing, who come from the same neighborhoods that they come from, and can show them an example of what it is to be a good citizen. Because I think a lot of times our young folks and folks who were away didn't have good examples of how to be men and how to be women, how to be fathers and how to be mothers. And if I can put those folks side to side with our employees, and I'd have to negotiate that with the unions, the 33 and 47 would have to be signed on board in order to do this right. But my argument to them is they're our folks, they're your nephews, they're your sons and grandsons. Let's get them a $10 an hour, whatever, job with a day labor situation where they come on a bus from State Road, and they go to work with the sanitation unit, or filling potholes, or trimming trees and working in our parks and rec. They do it in Chicago. Mayor Daley started that program a number of years ago, and he calls them my people. They're my guys. They're my people. And I am committed to making that effort to change and change the cycle of this whole particular problem. Because in the end, not only is it the moral thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, because these folks are going to be taxpayers at some point in time, and it's a smart thing to do because I don't have to house as many people behind bars and pay for them as we do now. That money can go to education. And that's the other piece of this. We need pre-K for every 3 and 4-year-old in the city. And access to pre-K is not universal here. And the city needs to provide with the corporate world, with the Chamber of Commerce, with Penn, with Drexel, with all those institutions, to step up and put together a pot of money that gets 3 or 4-year-olds be able to read by the time they get to first grade and second grade. So the teachers aren't dealing with them in a remedial way. Because what happens is if you can't read in the 3rd grade, in 7th and 8th grade you're acting up, and 9th and 10th grade you're dropping out, and then you're on that path that I want to keep them off of that path. So it's a two-pronged approach. One is on the front end, making sure the kids have the things that they need to succeed in school, and on the back end, those who have made mistakes in our life who are coming home, come home. And we will do our best to make sure you don't go back. And that's my message to you, and that's my commitment to this process, and any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Give me your assessment of the city's approach to the Return to Citizens to Rise program, and specifically, do you have job data on how many folks have gotten a job through Rise?
No, I don't, but I will give you an example of a Rise example that was to me. I just shook my head and said, I had a guy who he was a white-collar crime. He had committed a white-collar crime, and he was in federal prison. And he was a IT specialist. He had great IT skills, and he was very good at what he did.